this solder comic and I'll look up it there. Right, so I want to solder this wire to there, yeah? Okay, so the way to do this is to simply wrap around, so you've got a reasonable physical connection, yeah? And then if this is already connected, it can be connected to something, you might need to slip this over the wire before you make the connection, yeah? You need to have that ready somewhere near, so if that was already connected, yeah, I'd have to put that over before I do this. Okay? Yeah? Okay, you have to think about these things in advance, right? Right, now to solder it, it's very simple. You need to be able to count to 3. These are quite nice little soldering ones. This one's, the only difference with this one is that it's got a hot air burner, which you won't need to switch on. It's also got a sucker, so when I switch that on, it's sucking air. It's sucking the fumes away through that tube. Yeah, it's the only difference between those. This one and these ones. I don't know if, do I need to talk about health and safety a bit? I mean, when I'm working with children, I point out that the end's hot. Okay, these are at about 300 degrees. You can see on there's a little readout on the, you can't see there, but people around this side can see, can't you? Mm-hmm. It says about 300 degrees. And I set this one to about 300 too, on a different kind of, it's just a roll. So I kind of point out to children, well actually I don't point out, I ask them, what should they do with it? And eventually we get to, they shouldn't burn themselves with it, they shouldn't burn somebody else with it, and they shouldn't stick it in the desk or anywhere else. Okay, which pretty much covers everything except soldering. And the cardinal sin, and I always tell kids that I will write home with a bill for £30, is to stick the solder in their eye into the solder, which is very tempting. And it melts it beautifully, but it wrecks it kind of 30 quid on the solder. I just tell kids, well, that's fine, I'll send the bill over for it, so I'll get you one. You can have it, it's yours. It's a useless piece of scrap metal, that's what I'm going to say. This is lead solder. In education, highly recommend you continue using lead material solder, not the other solder. It's really hard to work with lead solder. These are highest temperature, everything's more complicated. There is no legal requirement to use unleaded solder in hobbyists or education systems. Okay? It's not required. It's illegal to use leaded solder in commercial products, but that's fine. But use on commercial products, it's an education. The lead does rub off on your fingers. You won't absorb it through the skin. Lead's a problem when you ingest it. Okay, so I suggest to kids it's very wise not to suck on the end of this. And to wash your hands after you use, which you should do after D&T or before you eat, frankly. But I mean, particularly after D&T, particularly when you use lead solder. So those are the kind of two hard takeaways. One is because you use that for lead, which is minimal, particularly for kids who are only, I mean, it's a bigger risk for you if you're teaching electrical tools. And the biggest risk is to technicians who are probably even more. You know, it's the people who are in the workshop all the time, where it's not the kids who come out. So the other risk is this, and the only time I've ever had children burn themselves is when they're pissing around and some kid nudges another kid who's like this and it goes into their hand. That's actually the time they're going to burn themselves. As long as they're not, you know, you've got it absolutely tied down that they're not messing about with the end of this. The other thing kids do is they gesticulate while they're talking. They've got 3 degrees at the end of their hand. Which is why if you come and learn how to do surface mount soldering with us, we'll show you how to do soldering, but it's much simpler than this, and cheaper, and easier, and all kinds of things, but that's a different story. So, I need 3 hands now, one for my solder, one for my soldering iron, and one to hold that. And I found that lots of children don't have 3 hands, so one solution, and you should have a bit of blue tack on top of each of these, is a piece of blue tack that will very nicely hold the components in place. And that's the cheap solution. The more expensive solution is these things, and I've got 2 or 3 of them. Looking back, if you want to fiddle with them, I'm sure you're using it before you work out using the little clip that you can use to hold things in place. And frankly, I generally find them more hard work than they give you benefit. Some people love them, so that's just personal preference. I like my bit of blue tack. So
I've made some with a block of wood and stuck.
Yep.
Dog clips. No. You hang your washing up?
Well, clothespins. Yeah, clothespins.
I've stuck clothespins
on.
Yeah,
and actually, those who haven't been in schools much will find out schools, lots of schools have made their own versions of these. These are, how much, David? About 4 or 5 quid?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Bulldog clips as well.
Bulldog clips. So there's lots of ways of making your own. I like blue tack. The only problem with blue tack is that it's one of those things like bullberries that kids seem to want.
Yeah.
So there's a high risk of losing it if you give kids. But I mean, if it's still stuck on the top of there by the time you're finished, I don't know. So, count to 3. We want to get that nice and hot. So you get it nice and hot by counting to 3. And then you apply a little bit of solder, 3 little dabs of solder. 1, 2, 3. And the solder goes away. When you count to 3 again, it flows around like this. 1, 2, 3, we've done that. And that's a perfect solder joint. And the bit that kids get wrong is they either take this away while the solder's still there, and the solder gets stuck on. That's a minor problem. More often than not, they take that away and that away at the same time, and often you get a weak joint because you haven't just let the solder flow around perfectly. But that is all you need to do for soldering. That is now perfect joint.